Hello,
Hello.
everybody. Welcome to Life Unfiltered at its new day and time. So, how's Phoenix doing?
I am doing good. I have been running like a chicken with my head cut off since 6 o'clock this morning, trying to get all my pre op stuff done for my surgery. Tomorrow's going to be another day like that, but we're
Oh,
rolling.
hey, that's good. You're rolling with it and
Yes,
stuff.
sir.
But yeah,
How are
I'm
you?
I'm doing pretty good and everything. I got a little sinus issues going on right now, so you may see me blowing my nose during the show. But
Here.
other than that, we're just hanging around waiting for these storms tonight and tomorrow
Hmm.
that are coming through because we may have some real bad ones coming through.
Yes. We had some the other night and more coming too.
Right. We're right on the edge of the high part for tornadoes and everything they said.
Oh,
So
wow.
we're just kind of crossing our fingers. We have been lucky for so many years up in this area of not having a tornado. We've had high winds and stuff. So,
Sorry, I was sharing the show real quick.
oh, that's all right. That's all right.
Um, So just to let everybody know, James is supposed to be joining us tonight. I think probably his baby's giving him a hard time, so he'll probably be late.
Right.
He will be joining us, and Bill, hi Bill.
Hi, Arizona. I mean, Phoenix.
um, yeah. So, but we do have Mitch with us tonight, and Carl, do you want to introduce the subject or do you want me to go ahead and do that?
Yeah. Mitch is going to be with us tonight and we're going to do some talking, but you can also catch, and we'll be talking about it during the show. Him and James have a new podcast coming on Sunday nights, and it'll be coming on at 9 p.m. Central. So we'll get Mitch up here and see what's going on and hear more about this show. Welcome, Mitch, to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's good to see you guys. I hope you're having a wonderful evening.
Yes, we are. We are.
Absolutely.
So, Mitch, uh, first of all, tell the people a little bit about yourself that we have in the
Well,
chat.
um, I'm single dad, 34 years old, live in the great state of Missouri. Lived all over this country, done all kinds of jobs, and consider myself a man of many talents, but a master of none. Uh, Always trying to learn and trying to live the best life I can by God and by my child.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, when I met Mitch, well, last night was the first time I met Mitch and stuff, and we was talking and everything, and found out he lives in the southern part of Missouri. I live in the northwest part of Missouri. And after finding out what he's done some of his life, working and everything, he's been up here in my area putting up the windmills.
Yep,
So, yeah, it's a small world when it comes down to it and
absolutely.
everything. We meet people and everything going on here. But Phoenix brought you on asked you and James to be on the show. And James will be here in a little bit. Like I said,
Yep.
he's probably having trouble with his little ones, getting
Oh
them
yeah.
in bed because it's bedtime for him right now
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
and
Absolutely.
stuff. But we was talking last night, and you was talking about your heart.
Yes. Yep.
Why don't you? Because I don't think Phoenix has heard the story.
No. In
Right.
fact, before you start, just to let everybody know why we're asking him this, I've been seeing a lot of posts on Facebook about people who were told that their uh, vaccine side effects were temporary and would go away. And here lately, a lot of people are complaining that they still have them or are developing new symptoms, and they're being told it is from the vaccine, but still temporary, etc. So I ran the idea by Carl and James. And of course, I'd already heard a lot about Mitch for the show they're starting. But James answered back that Mitch had a story similar and he would like him to come on. So, of course, I was like, bring him on. So, Carl has heard a lot, but I have not. So, I'm excited to hear your story. So, we're going to basically kind of let you share your
Turn
experience.
you on to the whole show there. Let me see if this works when I do this. Well, wrong one in the picture there. There you go. That's how
Yeah,
we want to do
I
this.
would. I'd love to share my story with you. I'll give you a little bit of backstory. I did have a history of a mild heart condition, or not necessarily a heart condition. I had what they called a fistula. They discovered it when I was a teenager. It never caused any physical ailments. I've only ever worked physically demanding jobs. Um, I grew up in the desert. I worked a lot of outside jobs in the heat in Texas. Always physically fit. Never had any problems health wise, really. Then come the COVID comes around, and I was pretty confident in my health, and I was confident in my family's health. My wife at the time was deemed slightly high risk because of her health related issues, and she wanted to get the vaccine, and I supported her. I had no issue with that, and I wasn't going to, and I didn't initially until I was put into a rather tight predicament by my uh, point of employment. I was told by employment that if I wanted to continue working there, that I'd have to get the vaccine, and otherwise I'd be laid off. And I was single income household. I paid all the bills, so I couldn't take the risk of losing my job and being out, especially in that hard time of where jobs were limited. So I got the vaccine, and I got the Moderna. Didn't have any real side effects early on, but within probably about 4 to 6 months, I started retaining water, and I started having other problems of congestive heart failure show up. I started seeing a cardiologist, and they started running tests. They determined that they couldn't really find anything wrong per se with my heart. They said everything seemed to be fine. It seemed to be normal and functioning all right, aside from the fact that I was retaining a lot of water. And so they put me on some pills, said, just cut back on salt, and we'll put you on a water pill, and that'll take care of the issue. And I had gone to the doctor because I wasn't getting better. I started having chest pains, and I told the doctor, I said that we're having more problems. I'm getting shortness of breath. I'm struggling. I'm getting easily fatigued, and he just kind of brushed off my symptoms. Just it's just a sign of the buildup of water. Just continue taking the water pill, and you'll be okay. And then it was probably maybe about 3 weeks after that last visit that I stayed home sick, and I had a cough, a real bad cough, and I'd started coughing in the morning, and I all of a sudden had a really sharp chest pain. And I got up and I told my wife, I said, we got to go to the emergency room now. We got to go now. So we load up in the car. She's on the phone with my folks. They're calling ahead to the hospital, making them sure they have a crash cart ready for us because we're about 40-minute drive from the closest hospital and from the closest ambulance. So we weren't going to wait around for 911 to show up. And we get to the hospital. They asked me if I had been sick. I told them no, I was just having chest pains. And as soon as I get that out, I start being sick. I start vomiting, and I black out. I lose consciousness. They load me onto the cart. They wheel me into the emergency room. I was informed then that they spent roughly 6 hours working on me, trying to repair my heart. It had one of my arteries had separated from the main portion of my heart, and blood was pumping into my chest cavity at a very large rate. So they were trying to fix it. They couldn't. They decided to make the critical decision to send me to St. Louis. They were going to send me to MOBAP, Missouri Baptist up there, and they decided they were going to life flight me. That's when I first came to again, was when they were wheeling me outside. I felt that shock of the cold air hit me because it was February. So it was cold outside. And they load me up onto the helicopter, and I ask them, what's going on? What happened? Because I'm still in a state of confusion. And they're telling me, well, you're in a bad shape. We're taking you to St. Louis. We'll be there in about 25 minutes. It's a quick flight, and they'll take care of you. Okay, I'm glad to hear that, but I'm nervous. When they put you on the plane, I thought I'd be like in the center of the plane. They hang you out over the edge. A little bit nerve wracking, but they gave me the medicine, and that didn't last very long. Um, they put me into a medically induced coma for 10 days while they worked on me. I wasn't, I was obviously wasn't conscious during the operation, but I will never forget the sound of my chest cracking in my head. It's a very distinctive sound. It still haunts me. But they worked on my heart. I was on a heart pump for just over a week, about 8 days. I was on the heart pump, and it did all the work of circulating the blood in my system while they tried to repair my heart inside my chest through multiple surgeries. Um, the heart was having trouble oxygenating my blood and getting it circulated. So they started doing lung surgeries on me to try and improve my oxygen absorption. And I, they eventually woke me up 10 days after after the heart attack, and told me that it was a pure miracle that I survived. They said had I been any older, any less physical shape, I wouldn't have made it. Most people would have greatly just passed away. And um, I had to spend a long time in the hospital. I say a long time, it's about a week, getting back to being able to walk again. They said I suffered a stroke during the process. I dealt with a lot of nerve pain on the left side of my body. It took a lot of extra work on that left side to try and uh, get it to work and get it to function the way I needed to. It took physical therapy. I'm still on nerve blockers, medications for the pain, and I have forever dealt with the repercussions of this. I have shortness of breath, cardiac problems. I have a whole specialist team that I see about every other month now in St. Louis. I go up there and have a sit down testing and all the 9 yards with them. And I have a dozen medications to keep my heart functioning the way they want it to, just right. But they never really said exactly what caused it. Uh, I have my suspicions, we all do, and that's what bothers me is I I always ask that question of what if I hadn't gotten the vaccine? What if I hadn't been put in that position with my job? But at the end of the day, uh, life is what it is, and you try to take the cards you're dealt, and you try to do the best you can, and I made it through for my daughter. I'm grateful for that. I'm here every day to teach her new things. I'm getting better each day and exploring my options and always continuing to grow as a person. And I'm very grateful for where I am today.
Wow.
Yeah, it's what I said. I heard it last night when he was telling me. and stuff, and it's an amazing story. But
Mhm.
you left out one part. You're in the medical books.
Yes, yeah. There's been several doctors. I've gone up there and had varying cardiologists come in for training and things like that. And I'm now a case study in MOBAP for all of their students to read and to understand what the extreme spectrum is, and that even though this happened, it still is possible for somebody to recover from that, even though it's extreme and
Right.
very unlikely. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of doctors been out there, and I had one in particular. He'd come into my office and he was reading the case, and he's like, I know you. He's like, I don't know you, but I know your case. He's like, I've reviewed this, I've read this history, and
Mhm.
everybody, doctors, nurses, were truly amazed even a week later that I had pulled through and made it and survived.
Right. Now,
Right.
did any of the doctors ever link it back to the shot?
No, they did not. They wouldn't link it to anything. They just wrote it off as an unforeseen stress. They claimed that I put too much stress on my heart, and I mean, it's hard for somebody to say what's too much stress. To me, it was the normal
Right.
stress. So, I,
Right.
like I said, there'll never be proof. You'll never know one way or another, but I'll always question it. And the timeline matches up real good with a lot of other
Right.
timelines I've heard.
Well, and there's a lot of people who had cardiac issues. I
Yeah,
now most of the stories I heard were not as extreme as yours necessarily.
Hmm.
Um, well, I say that, but there are some stories where I heard, somebody died, and it was cardiac related, but it was more just sudden, you know.
yeah,
Um, but for those who survived, like yours is probably the by far the most extreme.
yeah.
Um, but that was part of my issue with it because I have a mild heart condition myself. Um, three of my four heart valves do not open and close right, although they have diagnosed it as mitral valve prolapse. Um, but it's actually three out of the four. It's just my mitral that is the worst. And I had a lot of issues before, like not enough testing for me.
Yeah.
Just a lot of, if you're trying to force it on me, there's more to the story than what meets the eye, that kind
Oh
of
yeah.
stuff. But then I heard about all the health conditions of people that were getting the vaccine. And, with my heart condition, I had a lot of people say, well, you're more at risk. You need to go get it.
Mhm.
No, it's because of my heart condition that I am not going to go get it.
Yep.
I just came to the conclusion with all the looking into the vaccines and everything that I just felt it was better for me to chance it. Um, but uh, I don't know. My heart goes out to you and your family, because I couldn't imagine going through that. And
Well,
but
I'm grateful
people
I didn't
shouldn't
do any of
be
my
forced to
children.
take it. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, my
And
kids were survived.
Bill made a comment earlier about how the people who were forcing this on the people, you can't come here and grocery shop or you
Right.
can't go to work or, you're fired. You know, they're allowed to do this kind of damage to people and nobody's ever held accountable,
Yeah, yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
and that's what I never understood. I was a good employee. Everybody in the company was. I live in a very red state, Missouri, and a lot of the people were very against it. And there's a lot of pushback in our factory trying to go against it, and it really just became down to the point where they were threatening to lay off half the staff or more, and we just it's a poor area. We're a very poor part of the country here, and people can't just give up a job, even to lose income for a week and find another one. That's a week without food. That's a week where they're late on their rent. It's a hard area, and they knew that. They knew they had everybody down here over a barrel, and that they could use that to their advantage and give and do what they wanted. They were able to weed out certain other employees because it was a convenient excuse. And
Mm-hmm.
then when once they didn't want to weed out, they still had the option to that if you want to push back, it's right there, and you're not going to get unemployment for it. You're going to just sit there and suffer, and that's what really got me and made me upset about the whole thing.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a lot of companies out there. Even the military was that way.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
get the shot or you're out.
Yeah.
We know that from one of our old ones and stuff. But I mean, it was ridiculous. But with
Yeah.
your circumstance, you got that 6 months before you had this major heart condition happen.
Mhm.
And from there on, and then after you got home with your heart condition, you couldn't work anymore.
Yep.
It put you out. And there was a lot more, but you got rid of that stress part
Mhm.
Yep. Yeah.
and gained more by you and your daughter
That's
and
right.
stuff. And like I told you the other night, I'm proud of you for doing that
I
and
appreciate it.
stuff.
Yeah.
So hey James,
Yeah. Hi, James.
Hi,
Sorry.
everybody. Sorry for being late.
hey, better
Fell
late
asleep
than
putting
never.
the young one to sleep. That's why our show isn't until about an hour later, just in case I fall asleep or the little one doesn't fall asleep. So,
Right. That's no problem.
Yeah. My son-in-law's in the army, and he and my daughter had just taken out their VA loan and bought their house, when
Mhm.
all that was happening. And
Yep.
he went, now they're in outer Indianapolis. I won't say exactly where, but outer.
Yeah.
But he comes back to, uh, he goes to Louisville to do his drills. And so all the way up until the time he got there, he kept saying, I'll leave. They can throw me out. I'm not taking it. And then when they got there, and a lot of his buddies were saying the same thing, they all went saying, we're done. We're not taking it. However, when they got there, they told my son in law that he would lose his VA loan because he'd had it
Mhm.
only a certain amount of time and all this
Yep.
stuff. Um,
Yep.
so they would have lost their house, and their VA loan was 500,000. He's like, it's not even like we're talking a small amount. He's like, we've
Yeah.
got this whopping mortgage and everything, and plus car payments, groceries, 5 kids,
Yeah. Absolutely.
So at that point, when they told him that, oh, and then remember, it started that it was just going to be a general discharge, and then it changed to dishonorable discharge
Mhm.
and
Yep.
stuff. So he ended up taking it. And that night, my daughter called me really upset because my son in law called her from the hotel room saying that one entire side of his body was paralyzed and he couldn't move. So she called her
Mm-hmm.
father-in-law, and they jumped in the car and came rushing back to Kentucky to get him. And, I told Miles to get him in immediately to get checked out. Like, don't waste
Yep.
any time. Now,
Yep.
by the next day, he was over it and, moving. And so far, he has not had more issues. But I'm sorry, I don't think, who knows what's going to happen in, a few more months or a few more years.
Yep.
Hopefully nothing, but we
Oh
don't
yeah.
know. And I think, even for it to have been paralyzation for one night, even that's too much.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah. That should never be a side effect.
Yeah. It's just crazy to me, that nobody's, allowed to be held accountable for doing this stuff to people.
Oh, I
It's
know.
also the first vaccine that our government owned half of. They've never owned half the
Yeah.
stock in a vaccine before. This was the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other thing that made me sit back and say, why?
Yeah,
You know,
I'm a firm believer, in my personal opinion, that
Yeah.
politicians shouldn't have stake in the financial market.
I
Uh,
agree.
you want to get in the financial market, retire as a politician. You want to be a politician, retire out of your financial market. Take your funds and go, because when you mix politics and you mix money, you're never going to get a positive outcome for the people. You're
Nope.
only
Right.
going to get greed. That's all that you're ever going to have encounter.
That's it.
And it's just you see it in on both sides of the aisle, both left and right
Right.
are but guilty of throwing policies and voting certain ways to benefit their stocks and their shareholders. And I'll never agree to them being one and one with each other. I think they should be separated entirely,
Yeah,
I
personally.
they
agree.
should. And they're trying to do that right now. But there's
Yeah.
too many
I,
politicians in there that's going to vote against it because they got their hands in it. That's
Yeah,
the
it's
problem.
real convenient that the people that we're having the problem with are the ones that are
Oh, yeah. You look
controlling
at
it.
how many
right.
politicians go in. Well, look at, I'll use Nancy Pelosi as an example,
Mhm.
right? Her net value is up there almost to $200 million
Yeah, that
right
should
now.
never be.
You figure, as a senator, like she's been, and every congresswoman, senator, and all that, right? Figure the hundred and some $1,000s a year. She'd
Hmm.
had to been in there for 300 years to get that amount of money,
Yeah. Yep.
you know. But she also was in position to where they're talking about this stock and this stock, you
Hmm.
know.
Yep.
Boom, boom, boom. That's how
Right.
most of your
Yep.
politicians have made their money,
Oh yeah, and it's
and
just
it's
all it takes
against
is
the
a name
law.
drop. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. So, Mitch, uh,
Yes.
do they expect your heart to improve, or do they think it's basically going to just kind of stay where it is, including all the medications you're on, or what's the prognosis, I guess?
Um, More or less, I'm at a stable point where it's not going to improve much more. I do physically work out and try to improve cardio and physical health and things like that. And there, it can only get to so much just because the saturation level with my oxygen is it's really what's holding me back. I've got the blood flow, but it's just I don't get oxygen like I should. So
Mm,
it creates that fatigue sets in really quick with the
right.
muscles and everything. So they figure I'll probably maintain about the same. I'll be on this medication regimen the rest of my life. Uh, Hopefully it doesn't increase. That's where my role comes in. If I try to be healthier and try to live a healthier life, I can keep some of those medications cut back and lowered. But yeah, there's not really a great improvement beyond this.
Okay.
right.
Yeah, and I kind of understand what you're saying about the oxygen saturation and stuff because I can tell when all three of my valves are acting up because I don't get enough flow for that oxygen
Hmm.
to,
Yeah.
and and I don't have to be exercising. I can be sitting on the couch, and
Oh yeah.
if I don't take it immediately, I'll be in the middle of a sentence, and next thing you know, I'm laid over, passed out. Now, all that regurgitated blood will come rushing out of my heart and through my body. And for about 15 minutes, I'm not in control of myself, and I'm
Right.
crying like crazy, but I'm not crying, I just don't have control. And I'll be moving almost like I'm having mini seizures for a little bit. But as that my body adjusts to that lack of oxygen and blood, and then getting rushed with it all of a sudden, I'll start leveling out. So I've always told
Right.
people if that happens and I wake right back up, don't call an ambulance for me because there's nothing anybody can do. That's just what it
Yeah.
is. But
Right.
I've dealt with it since 2009. So now I know what it feels like and the symptoms. As soon
Yeah.
as I start noticing them, I try to be nonchalant in front of people. And like if I'm sitting down, you know, you might see me just
Yeah.
kind of lay like this, just like I'm listening, but just being super lazy. Nine
I,
times
I,
out
I
of
do
10, if
that.
I'm laid over like that far, I'm having problems and I just don't want to say anything, but I'm trying to get that gravity going to get that blood flowing and I'll feel it start straightening out and I can sit back up, you know, and I'll just be,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
tired, you know.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
so I
I
kind of get
understand.
what you're saying, and you know, it's terrifying for me, you know. So I can only imagine what it's like for you to be experiencing that. And I think, you know, just the anxiety or stress from that would be difficult as well.
It
Right.
was. It was a lot to deal with. There was a lot of repercussions, both my mental state, my family, just every aspect of my life was affected in a negative manner by it. It was
Right.
truly
Right.
a moment that'll rock you.
And James, you've heard Mitch's story. You've talked to Mitch and known him for a lot of years. What's your take on everything he's talked about on his heart condition and what happened? He told the story before you got on here that he told me last night.
Yeah, no, I kind of it was kind of after the fact that I put two and two together with the vaccine. I mean, whenever all that happened, I mean, I was just worried about him and his family and taking care of everything. But thank God he pulled through by some miracle. I mean, truly. And then when he came back, then he was dealing with the situation with his wife and everything. But right around once that all resolved, it kind of just hit me one day. I was like, "So you got that damn vaccine, didn't you?" And I was like, "This is exactly what it sounds like. All these other people were having issues with the myocarditis and all the other nonsense that you were hearing people come up with." And I was like, "Dude, I mean, I actually think that that damn vaccine." And this is the thing with the vaccine. And Bill mentioned that the side effects can show up decades later. These things, and yeah, absolutely. That's the scary part about all this is it seems like you know I think we're all pretty much on the same page to say that COVID came out of the lab now, right? I think we can all say that comfortably at this point that it was an actual bioweapon,
Right.
which is why it behaved so strangely compared to
Yeah.
every other. I mean, I've never heard of the side effects that I'm being told that people with COVID are experiencing, you know. So it would only make sense that if the people that were developing the cure knew there was a bioweapon, that whatever they're trying to do to correct it is also going to have some crazy side effects as well, right?
Right.
And so I mean that's all part of this. I don't know if how you want to look at intent. Like, are they trying to do this on purpose? Because you got to remember the crazies that are responsible, they're involved in all this. They also believe that the world's overpopulated and global warming and all that. So they feel like they're trying to cull off part of the population. So then there's that side of it too. These globalists that just want to, I don't know. And then there's just evil people. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm not really
Agreed.
sure how all that goes. But looking back on it now, that 2020 vision, it's like, man, um, it doesn't behave like anything else you'd seen, and and the way that it and this is the thing with Mitch and then other people, it was like the weaknesses that they had, the the virus or the vaccine, kind of maybe even the same thing. Uh, it preyed on those weaknesses
Yep.
and it kind of it exaggerated them, right? So Mitch is a pretty tall guy and has history, I guess, family history of like heart illness, right? But at his age, it's kind of not really common to have that type of event,
Right.
no less. I mean, correlation, not causation, and all that. But still, I mean,
Yep.
you put 2 and 2 together, and it just
It's a strong case. Yeah.
Yeah.
very strong
Yeah,
case. And
they'll
that's what
never
they do.
be
They gaslight you with that shit otherwise.
they'll never be proof of any of it, and that's what they bank on.
Right.
Yeah, it's always going to be that, well, what if, you had this precondition, you didn't do this right in your life, you ate this dish, or you did this bad habit. They're always going to have a crutch that they can lean on and say, that's what causes your problem. That was
Right.
the issue. But when you start to look at the numbers overall, you see the dramatic increase in cardiac problems. That's not just like somebody's random health habits. You're seeing
Right.
this grow exponentially across the board. That should be obvious red flags to so many people, and they just like the parade, I guess. They
Right.
don't care.
Well, I just looked this up because, well, I forgot to do it. Well, I didn't forget. I just, like I said, I've been a chicken with my head cut off today, just running around. But on the Facebook moms group that I'm on, which kind of spurred the topic for tonight, something that I kept seeing all these women mentioning for a side effect that started after they got the vaccine. So they didn't have it before. It all started, and there each woman, one might be immediate, one a few weeks, months. It was different that way. But with all of them, it started after was POTS. And I wasn't quite sure what POTS was, so I just did a quick search on that, and it says POTS is a condition characterized by excessive increase in heart rate, which is tachycardia, upon standing or sitting upright. And it gives all these symptoms: rapid heart rate, over 30 beats per minute within 10 minutes of standing, dizziness, lightheaded or fainting, fatigue, palpitations, blurred vision, nausea, and exercise intolerance. And it says that the cause of POTS is unknown, but it's believed to be related to an imbalance in the autonomic nervous system, which controls involuntary bodily functions such as heart rate and blood pressure. So, still, a lot of this is related to the heart.
Yep.
Of course, still far milder than what happened to you, but here is something else that is heart related. And this is POTS is like in almost every comment on this post. So, I think, hopefully more people will start waking up that maybe this just is not as safe as what they were telling us. And you're right, they're never going to probably come out and say, in fact, Bill, you can answer this, I'm sure. Wasn't it, didn't the vaccine companies sue and get it passed that they could wait 75 years? I might be off on the years. Is what I want you to correct me on if I'm wrong. But I think 75 years before they had to disclose anything on that, the information packet for side effects and all that stuff. And right now, like Bill commented earlier, it's blank. If you pull it out of the box, yeah, 75 years. Okay, thank you, Bill. But yeah, they're allowed to wait 75 years before they legally have to tell us anything else really about the vaccine.
Yep.
And I think that should be a crime. Oh, okay, they did shoot it down. Okay, that's what I'll say. That should be a crime. Okay.
Yeah, because
That's
conveniently
good.
that would fall off, after the vast majority of us had died already, whether we
Exactly.
got it or didn't. It just conveniently sweep that one under the rug, like so many investigations where they withhold the evidence for so long. In
Right.
my opinion, is if you've come to a conclusion, then we kind of have the right to the evidence that helped you come to that conclusion. Now,
Right.
if you're still under investigation, okay, I understand withholding evidence is part of an investigation. Sometimes it's necessary, but investigating done, let's all hear the record.
Right. Yeah, if I had to wait 75 years, I'd be 126 years old. And I just don't think that God has that plan for my life. So, I mean,
Well,
I
you,
definitely will not be
you,
around.
you could
Right.
you could be collecting Social Security though. So
Yeah, you
Hey,
could.
somebody could be on my behalf.
Yeah.
Somebody will. But yeah,
Right.
right, yeah, somebody.
My greedy kids. I'm just kidding. If they're watching, Emily will pop up in the comments. Hey, mom.
yeah.
Yeah, no. There's been a lot out there, and I told Carl before the show. I said when I was seeing all these posts, I was like, "Hey, why not do a show about it? Because people aren't talking about it anymore. It's like they have moved on to anything and everything except, hey, how are people doing now? And that's one of the things that we were questioning back then. Where are people going to be in a year? What about 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, etc.? And, it was a hot topic there for a little bit, but, nobody talks about it anymore. It's like,
In
nothing's
in
ever
10
happened.
years, you won't hear nothing about it.
Oh no.
It'll
They'll
be out
talk
of the
more about
news.
the
Something
toilet
else will
paper
be in the
shortage.
news on it.
Phil.
Somebody, 50 years down the road, research something or it'll pop up and they go, oh, what was this COVID-19? Oh, wow, that happened in our country?
That or they'll look at it, the same as, the flu and won't think anything of it. And we'll look at us as a bunch of kooks for saying all this was from COVID, because it will be so much, I don't know, so much further along, I guess.
Well, we had so
But
many diseases back in the 1800s and stuff when they was building railroads around here. You don't hear a lot about that. And
no.
it killed massive amounts of people. I know the little railroad between Kingston and Hamilton that used to be there was all built by the Chinese, right? They had the plague come through.
Hmm.
300 of them died. They're buried on the north side of the cemetery in unmarked graves there. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that that goes on that nobody pays attention to anymore.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, Carl, I'm going to excuse myself just for a minute, if that's
Okay,
okay.
no problem. But, yeah. So, okay. Both of them. Oh, there he is. Okay, he popped
Yeah.
back in. I was like, she was going to dismiss herself. Where'd James go? But yeah. So while she's gone and we got this platform going on here, like I told Mitch, I announced your show on my last show an hour and a half ago, right? So tell everybody a little bit about what you're going to do on your podcast and when it's going to be.
All right. Well, yeah. First of all, Carl, thank you for giving us a shout out on your show and for bringing us on to the network. The name of the show is No Nonsense Tonight, and it's a mostly a political commentary show, but we just want to do a bunch of fun stuff. And really, it comes down to whatever the topic is for the day. We'll go back and we'll review the main things that have happened throughout the week. With Trump being in office, it's like moving at the speed of Trump. I don't know if there's anything that's really moved as fast as this guy before. So just keeping up with all of it is a task in and of itself. So that's kind of the idea, is to review the main points throughout the week, and then kind of get into some more fun stuff. And Mitch and I will do some maybe watch and reacts, or I've got some magic cards. I don't know if anybody's into that, but I've started this hobby recently, so I'm like excited to start opening up some of these things and just kind of see what I get. Fun stuff. And then little games and who knows what else. So kind of a mixed bag, but really just having fun on Saturday nights at 10 Eastern, 9 Central.
Yep.
Then hopefully the kids will be asleep by then, and I will be awake.
Yeah.
And I'll have some time to put things together down here and get going. So that's the show. That's the time. Would love it for everybody to come and join us. Probably, hell, you know what? I just had an idea. We could play some drinking games too, because it's Saturday night, and so
That's right.
that's like the perfect time to do some drinking games. So
Hey, that'll
Now, when
yeah,
you
that's
say,
what we're doing.
sorry, when you say magic cards, are you talking about the game Magic?
Yeah,
Or
Magic the Gathering.
Magic? Okay.
Yeah.
That my
Yeah, not
my
like
son-
magic cards, like trick cards. Although
I
I was
wanted
into
to
that for a little
clarify.
while.
No,
We might watch some
my
videos on that. That's pretty interesting too.
my 16-year-old and 26-year-old that are here, they play Magic. Oh, and my oldest plays
Oh yeah.
Magic. Yes,
There
pretty
you
much
go.
every
Okay.
week.
Well,
We're gonna
tell
get
them
together
about
off
the
air
show.
and-
They can tune in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty much every Friday or Saturday, one or the other. I've got a little group of people sitting around my kitchen table playing.
Friday Night Magic. There you go.
Hey,
Night Magic. Yep. Mitch and I
that's
played Friday
great.
Night Magic online for years, and my brother and I play every Friday night now. So
Okay.
we'll have to
Cool.
get together because it's always nice. It gets kind of boring playing the same person over and over, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, now I gotta warn you, my son, he's spent a bit of money on his deck. People hate playing with him. They're like, his card is so toxic. It's almost impossible to play. I know nothing about it other than what they tell me. I don't play it, but
Now, I
they-
got a question for you on this Magic game, right? Okay, it's in a deck of cards, correct?
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay. Is there now on a couple of our shows, we have played games on here. Do you find the Magic game where you can play it on the computer?
Yep. They have a PC version.
Hey, there you go. You can bring
Yeah,
that up on the screen and invite people in to play.
That's yeah.
Because we've done shows with game shows like that with cards and stuff. What's that one card where they draw it and they say one verse and everybody's got to throw a card down?
Someone was detected in
And it's
your
usually a
Oh.
nutty card.
Cards Against
Like
Humanity.
Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah, Cards Against Humanity.
I've
we
got
played-
that.
We have
Yeah.
played that on shows before. And it was a big hit.
Yeah.
We had people in the chat room. We had people playing with us. All the guests on there would have the same thing on there, and we'd put their name up there, and they'd play with us. So that's something you might think about.
Yeah, that's the challenge of creating those types of games. Is something that's interactive that people can get involved with. So that's a good
Mhm.
idea. Is if you can have like an online game that people can join in and play.
Right. A PC
Really cool.
version game. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome, though. But yeah,
I can-
I'm glad
Pop
both
that
of
on
you
real
have
quick.
joined the Bill of Rights Network and everything. We had a great talk last night. What? A little over 2 hours that was on here. Just chit-chatting about everything.
Yep.
And that shows how good everybody gets along on this network.
Mhm. Yeah, we really do. I also had asked James about Carl, but just to let
Yeah.
people know, I kind of asked James about being more or less a regular guest co-host on our
Yeah,
show.
a co-host if one of us can't
Yeah.
make it or something. Either
Um,
one of you are invited to do that.
Yes.
Mitch would make a great co-host with you too, Phoenix,
Yeah.
and stuff.
I'll be out as long as the rest of my tests go good. I'll be out 2 Tuesdays, so that would leave Carl by himself or having to cancel
Yeah.
and
Someone was
he's had to
detected in your
miss
front
some.
door.
We
Um,
can come up with something on
So,
that. That's no
I
problem.
was like, one, I just love having you on anyway, so we don't have to be gone for you to come on the show. But
Mhm.
if we are, hopefully, we don't have to cancel or just sit here by ourselves talking
No.
to a screen trying to keep up with comments. So I just want to let everybody know James said he cannot promise to be on all the time, but hopefully we'll see him be a more permanent fixture than not. And same for you, Mitch.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
but yeah, okay. Now we'll get back into a little bit. I won't say politics. We'll get into some news. Did you see how many shooters they had today? Incidents
I
go
wasn't
on.
able to look into anything. I literally
There was
just go.
four, there was 3 or 4. One was at a Walmart.
Oh
One
wow!
was at a house standoff. Another one was a guy in a car was with a standoff with him and everything. He had a gun. And I mean, it's just getting crazy. Every time I turn something off, there's a standoff here, there's a standoff there, there's a standoff. It's getting crazy out on that East Coast, guys.
But
Real.
I wonder if part of it, and I mean, this is where my conspiracy brain starts coming in. When I start seeing a lot of stories, after a little bit of time, some of the stories, I'm not gonna say all of them, but some of the stories you start finding out there was other stuff going on that kind of makes you sit back and go, And I wonder if some of it is kind of by design that the government is seeing and just not acting like they should be on certain things, because there's been stories where, people they knew they were planning, they had evidence of it and let it sit back and happen. Right, Bill. So, but my thing is, are they allowing a lot of this, and not looking more into this stuff as a way to try to get society more on the side of giving up our Second Amendment?
Yeah, that's a lot of it. That is a lot of it. But
The best way to get people to willingly give up their rights is to scare them. So if enough people
Fear.
get scared of of the gun violence and stuff, they're going to start maybe becoming more proactive about taking our
mhm.
guns and stuff away.
And then you look at today, there in New York in Chinatown, a Penske truck plowed into
Oh
a
yeah.
group of people on a sidewalk and flipped over.
No,
Now,
I
they
did.
don't know if the driver did it intentionally or he had a medical problem. They're looking into this. But it killed, what did it kill? 9 people? Something like that. There was a large amount that it killed and injured.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's all kinds of stories like that. I mean, we're hearing them left and right
Yeah.
coming out.
Yeah.
So,
I, and that's crazy because I had a incident happen. Like I said, I spent most of my day back and forth, between here and Lexington, just between doctor's appointments and stuff. And coming back to Georgetown on my last trip, I was in the lane that goes straight, and there's a lane that merges into that lane. And we're all pretty much bumper to bumper. And, every once in a while, a car would try to leave a little gap for a car to slip in and merge. Um, I was not that nice person today. I was not going to go a car too back. I was tired, hungry, and I had to be home by a certain time because I'm on a liquid only, like water only, until 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So I was rushing to get home and eat before I had to completely cut food off. So I was like, I'm in my lane. I'm going behind me, whatever. So not so nice of me, but I just wasn't in the mood to be that nice. So I'm in my lane, making sure they can't get over. So what does this lady do? I hear her engine, and she just starts coming into the side of my car.
Ooh.
I had nowhere to go except either let her hit my passenger side or go into the oncoming traffic lane. And I started laying on my horn. I had my kids in the back seat, and I'm like, oh dear God, not another car accident, you know. I'm like, well, you can help me buy a house if you want, because this is going to be your fault. I was in my lane, you know. So, I mean, if it's going to happen, just get ready. But, you know, of course, I didn't want that. So as she's coming over, I'm laying on my horn, and my kids are freaking out. And I'm getting further and further into the oncoming traffic lane. And thank God there was nobody coming, because I would have had to stay in my lane and just leave it me and her hitting, you know, versus head on other cars. But, you know, and of course, this wasn't a terrorist thing or anything, but it's just crazy. You're talking about all the shootings and the craziness going on. And yet I saw so many car accidents, and then the way that lady was doing it. And I had nowhere to go, literally nowhere. And I had just enough gap. I threw my car in sport mode, and I gassed it past 3 vehicles in a semi truck just as a car was coming right at me, and I barely just shot back into our lane past the semi truck. And my kids talked about that all day. Even when Ken got home, they were like, Daddy, why did that woman shove us into the other lane? I mean, Mom kept trying to get her attention, and she wouldn't even look at us. She just kept coming over and coming over. And Mommy almost got hit, and they were just on and on. And I was on the phone with Emily, and she could hear me laying on my horn trying to get that woman, like, what are you doing here? You know? And she just kind of do this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she knew, because you see her kind of turn her head like to see where I'm at. And she's just, but then it was like, you know, and I'm like, okay, I see. That's all right. I got a gas pedal, and I got maybe enough room. I just made that instant decision, and I floored it. I mean, I didn't feel like I had much choice, you know, and but you know, it's just crazy. And then getting into Georgetown, there were a couple accidents there. I saw accidents all over Lexington, and I'm like, what is going on? You know, like, just I thought that was just phenomenal, the amount of accidents, and it was yesterday too. And then, like I said, I wasn't able to keep up on news or anything. I got on Facebook while I was sitting at the one doctor's office and just scrolled a little. Otherwise, I wouldn't even seen that post for the show tonight. I would have had to just make something up. But you know, I mean,
I
it was
know.
one of those days that it just was crazy. So to hear that, I'm like, you know, it just makes me think even more what is going on, that people just seem to be becoming more aggressive and stuff.
Well, people, you know, it's like up here. You when you're driving, especially in the evening hours, you got to watch out for deer. They're everywhere up here, running across the roads, right? Or you got to watch out for that drunk driver swerving all over the road. You know, a lot of that stuff. But you're like my co-owner of the bus. You never think you're going to top over a hill and hit a naked man running up the road.
No, no.
You know, what's the odds of that happening?
I'm
I
not
mean,
laughing because the man got hit. That is not funny, but you know, I
well,
definitely would not
she thought
expect.
she hit a deer.
Oh God!
When he hit and came up on her windshield, he's a white guy, he's naked. So all the white went sliding up over the windshield after he hit. Well, the underside of a white-tailed deer is all white. So she got out on her phone with her husband. I hit a deer. And the gentleman in the other vehicle come up there and said, ma'am, you didn't. You hit a naked man running up the road.
I can see where, depending on how fast you're going and stuff, 4 legs.
She
And
was
a
doing
tail
45
like
miles an hour
you know?
and
Yeah.
hit him. And you've seen the picture of the vehicle and everything. It almost looks like she hit a telephone pole.
Wow.
Yeah.
It does. A 280-pound man, 6 foot, 47, 49 years old, and he did a lot of damage to that car,
That's crazy.
and he didn't hardly get hurt. That was
Yeah.
like the guy said when he was running up the road and he told him not to go towards the light, and he's going, I'm going to see Jesus, right? He knew what he was doing, but he had angels around him when he got hit, is all I got to say. You get hit by a car going 45 miles an hour
Yeah.
and smash the whole front end up, shatter the windshield in 2 places, flop over it in the air, and come down solid on asphalt and skid,
Mhm.
right? And all you're going to come out with is a broken leg, 2 cracked ribs, 2 vertebrae that are messed up in his neck, and
Yeah.
scratches. That's all he came out with.
I was hit by a car when I lived in Memphis. Well, actually, our business was in Memphis. We had just moved to Hernando, Mississippi. And we had a big storm go through with tornadoes, and it had knocked trees down, power lines. So we ended up taking the back roads home. And my prior husband was driving. I had an 80 Camaro that I loved. I am a Camaro girl. I am determined to have another one day. But this car especially was special. It was used on the drag strip, and when I got it, it had the racing slicks on it and everything. And man, I drove that car, and I would go through the square in Hernando, and I would see the police doing this in their windshield. They never pulled me over, but they were like, "Slow down." All right, I'll slow down till you're out of sight. I had a 45-minute drive back up to Memphis, and love that car. And we come over the top of the hill, and there's this big tree from side to side, and we smacked into it, shoved it up the road, it busted out my windshield. But my car was still running, and the bulk of the damage from that tree was just the front grille and my windshield. However, they had people stopping traffic, and this one car, I guess, decided he wasn't going to stop, and he comes around the line of cars, and there I am standing on the road. I'm wiping glass off my kids. I had Taylor, Brianna, and Emily in the back. We had put a third seat belt in over the hump for Taylor, and so I had Emily, Brianna, and Taylor in the middle, wiping glass off of them from the windshield, and I hear the man yelling, "Stop, stop, stop, stop." And I had just enough time to look, and I see him coming around the cars back into the lane, and he's coming right at me. And I looked down at my kids, and I was like, I'm never going to see him again. I knew he was going to hit me. I looked at my kids, and I looked over the car at my prior husband, like, kind of gave him that look like, bye, you know. And I just remember I put my left foot up in the doorway and started swinging my right leg over the top of the car. I was trying to step up on the door sill there, and jump up on top of the car. And he hit me. I still got a scar on one of my butt cheeks where his mirror smacked a big chunk out of me. Hit my right leg, threw my shoe up the road, and we just knew my leg was just shattered. I mean, my pants legs went way up to my knee. They had to elevate it and pack it down in ice for 4 hours before they could even do x-rays. Believe it or not, I have permanent damage done to that leg. And in the wintertime, there's a raised spot that'll turn a little funny color where there's nerve damage and stuff. But my leg was not broken or anything. And I had a lady walk up to me. I know people are going to think I'm crazy, but I was in church one day, and a lady walked up to me, and she said, that day that you got hit, she said, God showed me that. And she said, you've been beating yourself up, wondering why you tried to jump on top of your car instead of jumping in. She said, they told you that day, had you tried to jump in your car with that center console, there was nowhere to go, and that car would have taken the bottom half of your body off. She said, God had angels that put their hands under your butt to give you that, to get up out of the way, not completely, it out of the way to where your life was saved and he protected you. And she said your leg was not shattered because it was able to get as he hit you, your leg went up in the air with the motion. She said, God told me to tell you he has a plan for your life. And that's why he saved you. So she said, quit hanging on to all the things that you wish you could have done different that day, or the trauma that your kids saw this happen to you and stuff. She said, your kids will be okay. And she said, God saved your life for a reason. And I was like, okay. And I was able to kind of walk away because I was pretty traumatized by that. But yeah, my car was done at that point. The whole passenger side was taken out along with the damage from the tree. So yeah, that Camaro was gone, and I've promised myself ever since that I will get another one. And hadn't happened yet, but it will. But we never know what life is going to throw at us, and
No, we don't.
I just believe, we should be grateful for every day, whether somebody believes in God or not, be grateful for every day that we wake up, because no matter how bad that day may seem, it's still another opportunity to make your life what you want. And you never know what impact you may even have on somebody else, or, there's just so many times that I sit around and think, man, can I just go to bed and start this day over? And, I try to catch myself and say, you know what? God didn't even have to wake me up today. It's another day with my kids. Yeah, Onyx has me pulling my hair out, and I just want to hang him from the roof by his little toes. But I love that kid, and I can't imagine life without him. And I just have to make myself start thinking of all the positives and the blessings in my life and change my outlook, because it's true. We are genuinely not promised our next breath. And I've buried a husband. He ended up passing, and that saying became very, very real to me when that happened. Nobody should have to bury their spouse at 30 years old. I was
Right.
30, I was 42, and it was something we never ever thought would happen to us until we were much older. And so I don't know why I got on a lecture about that, but just, sitting here talking about all these things that happen, it's that necessarily are not good and positive. I guess I just wanted to say, something a little positive and motivational that,
It's life.
it's
You know,
still, it's still a blessing.
everything that happens to us during our life here on this earth.
Yep.
Everybody's got stories throughout, what of this, what of that, and everything. I mean, it's life. We have to live with it and deal with it. God's got a purpose and a direction for all of us. There's several times that I shouldn't even be here, but
Yeah,
God has somehow miraculously kept me going for almost 65 years. So, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I'll be 15. Golly, I wish.
I wouldn't go back to 15.
I
I,
wouldn't. Not today, I wouldn't. No, no, no. I'd hate to go
I
through
give
all
you
the
that.
dating
I
scene
just,
again.
but,
Mm-mm.
part of me thinks to be young again, and I say there's some things I do different, but I don't know that I would at the same time, because I wouldn't necessarily be where I am, and I kind of like where I am and the people in my life and my kids. So I don't know, but there are some benefits to being 15 versus going on 51. So yes, I will be 51 on the 19th of this month, and
Benefits like your bones don't squeak, your bones don't crack whenever you.
Yeah, right.
not quite yet. Not quite yet.
I'm doing
Or
something
you wake
wrong
up
then.
stiff as a board going, oh, yeah, uh-huh.
I have had some mornings, but the further I get away from the accident I had in June, the better that gets. But yeah, I agree, Bill. Everyone's where they're supposed to be, and part of me
100%.
hates saying 51, but then I'm like, why do you hate it? It's a blessing. there's so many people that didn't get the opportunity to wake up. It's really a blessing. So,
Well, it's I always think about like all the times that I thought I wanted something and I didn't get it, and now I'm glad that I didn't. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's how there's a greater design at play. There's God in our lives, shaping
yeah,
our futures, and we're exactly where we're supposed to be, right? I can't tell you how many times I was like, oh man, I really wish I had XYZ, and I cried about it, and I fought for it, and I was frustrated I didn't get it, and then 10 years later, I'm looking back, I'm like, man, I'm really glad that I didn't have that back then because and like you said, if you look at what you have now, I mean,
right,
look, I mean, we're all pretty privileged people, okay, in the sense that we were born in America and we live
right,
in this wonderful country. We have these freedoms. We have a roof over our head. We have food on our plates at night. We have clean water. We can take a hot shower. I mean, there are people in this world that don't have any of those things.
Yeah.
Okay, they're sleeping
right,
in the dirt and hell. There's veterans in this country that are sleeping on the streets that have risked their lives and given everything, and we've just turned a blind eye to them, and that just makes me sick thinking about that because of all the people that really deserve it are the ones that protected all of our rights to have the things that we have as well and not be ruled by some dictator, some actual dictator, not a MSM dictator definition of whatever the hell they want to
right.
call our, just because they disagree with you, right? But yeah, I mean, that's what I always go back to. I think about all the things that I was like, man, I really wish, at the time I had, and then I look back and I just wouldn't be where I'm at now and have my kids. I mean, that's my thing is like I honestly wasn't really sure that I wanted kids. I actually thought I didn't want kids. And then I had kids, and they are the greatest blessing in my life that I never thought that I would ever want or have, and I'm so grateful for.
Yeah.
I can't even say that enough. But yeah, no, we're all exactly where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, we are.
And yeah, and that's right, Bill. Gives us what we need, not what we want, and there's a reason for it. Exactly.
And
You know,
far too
y'all
often,
are, go ahead.
I was just going to say, far too often when we do get what we want, it leaves a bitter taste in our mouth.
Mhm.
It's not as
Yep.
good as you
Or
thought,
it's
right?
never enough. Speaking of God giving us what we need, I know this is going to make me sound absolutely terrible, but I'm going to share it anyway. When I always wanted kids. I always wanted to be a wife and a mom. I was the little geeky redhead girl with freckles, in school that, on career day, everybody wanted to be a fireman and police officer and all this. And what do you want to be? A wife and mom. And, that didn't go over too well. But that's what I always wanted. I never really wanted a career. Now, I will tell you, I love being an EMT firefighter. There's times I still miss it, but I always just wanted my focus to be being a wife and a mom, taking care of my family. And I don't know why that's what I always wanted. So having kids was not an issue for me, but along the lines of what Bill said, I always wanted a boy, but for some reason I thought it would be different having a boy second rather than first. And I don't know why I thought that was different. But when I found out I was pregnant, I didn't know the gender until about maybe 2 to 3 weeks before my son was born. And he was my first. And when I found out I was having a boy, man, I thought my world was crashing down. I was so upset, because I was like, what am I going to do with the boy? I can't teach him manly things, and, because of things in my past, my childhood and stuff, I was like, man, I don't want him to grow up to be one of those nasty old men. I don't want him to turn out to be like some of those men I knew. And I'm a female. How do I teach him not to be one of those men? and I just had all these fears. And I'm telling you, I spent a good bit of 2 weeks just bawling that I was having a boy. And I kept asking God, why? I don't mind having a boy, but why not later? When maybe I'm better prepared. Why now? Girls, I'm okay. I'm a girl. Um, and it really was a big issue. But I will tell you, when my son was born and they laid him in my arms, all that went away. And I looked at him and those little eyes, and I had to have an emergency cesarean with him. And so, of course, they made me wait a while to hold him, but when they finally brought him in, I was holding him here, and I had to keep him on the bed. They wouldn't let me sit up and hold him because of the medication. They had put me to sleep for it. So I was still groggy, but I remember looking down at those little eyes, and he was the most wonderful little person I'd ever held in my life, and I started crying. I just kept asking her, "Isn't he just perfect? Isn't he just the most beautiful thing you've ever seen?" And I'm sure every mom says that to their nurse at some point. And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." Even if they don't think so, they might think,
The
that
third
it's
most beautiful baby I've seen today.
right. The nurse, I think some of the babies look, a bit like Smeagol, but they're still gonna say, "Oh yeah, the baby's beautiful."
Yeah, no, yeah.
My son was beautiful, like legitimately, but all those fears and worries, everything just went away. And I realized that a lot of the stuff that I had gone through with these horrible men that had come in and out of my life and done these horrible things to us, it put me on the road to be able to start healing and seeing men in a different light, and just kind of coping with some of my own issues. And I realized that God knew what I needed. I didn't want to stay stuck in the trauma of my childhood and stuff. And, God could have allowed me to suffer consequences of my actions, from having AIDS or something or whatever. Instead, he didn't. I had to suffer some consequences, which was being a single mom. My dad upped and left as soon as he heard the word pregnant. So here I was 18 by myself and had him right after I was 19. Nothing but a high school education. And, it was all on me to take care of them. So there were some consequences to me playing and not being safe, but the consequences could have been worse. And my son was not the consequence, it was the circumstances and being by myself having to do it. But my son himself was a blessing. And God knew that I needed a son to help me get to a better place in my life and deal with stuff. So, I thought of that story when James was talking about his kids and then Bill's comment. And I was like, God most definitely knows what we need. And, we run around saying, "Oh, I believe in God and I trust him," but do we really? And there's so many things that we could all probably look back on and say God knew what we needed. And look, God saved my life, or he did this, or he did that, and yet so many times we still struggle to trust him. But he really does know what we need and what's best for us, even in the moments that we don't understand at the time.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I
Same
agree,
here.
Bill.
Yeah.
My guardian angel sees me get behind the wheel of my car and is like, "Oh no,
Yeah, the big face palm.
we need backup." I love to drive, and I'm not scared to drive. Well, I was a couple weeks after my last car accident, but no, I love driving, and I definitely have a heavy foot. So my guardian angel probably is like, "Back up, back up." She's getting in the car.
Right.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't have time to wait in traffic.
That's
I got
me. Get out
other
of my
things to
way.
do. Yeah.
I've got somewhere to go. Just move over. And especially come to Lexington on that 2-lane, man, I'm like, oh please. I had to follow somebody that was going 30 to 35 fluctuating, and that was nowhere near the speed limit. And I'm like, oh, I tell you what, just give me enough room to get around you. And I'm sitting there talking to this person like they can hear me. And I'm like, at least drive the speed limit.
Yeah. Well, it's like down here
man.
farming season, you can't even get around the tractors. You just pray that they eventually pull over enough that you can squeak by, but
Yep.
forget stuck behind a 15-mile-an-hour tractor for an hour.
Or you
That's
top
how
over
it
a
was
gravel
terrible.
road during planting season or harvest season, and
Yeah.
here's a combine coming down the road with its head on.
Mhm. Yep. Yep.
I've had that
Seen
happen
that.
when I was, 16. A bunch of us were out in a pickup, and we topped a hill, and we all had time to jump in the floorboard when the corn head went right through our cab.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, it's like a movie, man. It went through. We run off in a ditch. The guy stops to come back. He was expecting to see somebody decapitated, right?
yeah.
And we all set up, looking around, going,
Oh, shit.
"That was a close call."
Yeah.
Not including that 30-pack of beer we had in there, But
Oh, okay.
still, and everything. And that guy goes, "Oh my Lord. Well, we better get somebody out here." And we went, "Not until we get rid of the beer. You're not getting
Yeah.
nobody out here." So we got rid of it and everything. He paid for a new truck, but we drove the truck home with
Wow.
no top cab on it or whatever and everything. It looks something like the Three Stooges is what we look like out there.
I bet. That's terrible.
It's stuff you got to watch out for. We try telling our kids and grandkids now and everything. If you're driving around, and it don't matter if you're on a blacktop or a gravel road up here during harvest season and planting season,
Yep.
if you come up on a hill, you get all the way over to the right side as far as you can and slow down, because you never know what is over that hill. We've always said, if tractors are going to run down, and they're supposed to by law, if they've got the head on the combine, which they're not supposed to, they're supposed to carry it on a wagon, unload it and carry it on a wagon. But a lot of them, their field is a mile and a half away, so they just leave it on, to save time. They should have a flag vehicle in front.
Yeah.
Less chance, nobody's going to hit that thing in the back. They're going to
Right.
see. The front is what's got the big head on it, either it be a soybean head or a corn head. It's
Yep.
got blades in front of it. It's going to do some damage. They need a flag vehicle. We have contacted all our state representatives up here to try to put a law in the state of Missouri. But like they say, it's going to put a real hurt on your small farmers that don't have kids, don't have a wife. So they're out there by themselves. They got to hire somebody to flag for them. That cuts into their pocketbook. So there's a lot of fighting and touching and war back on it. But yeah, I've talked to congressmen and senators both about it.
Well, I mean, I think that'd be fair if so long as it's either you have a flag vehicle or you put that the head on the trailer and pull it.
Right.
They're supposed to do that anyway, right? So
Right.
this just gives kind of an additional option for people who are like, well, it's only a mile and I have somebody. So the only people, they're not really even being punished. You're already supposed to, not have the head on while you're driving it down the road. I mean, if you played a farming simulator and you've had traffic on, you know that doesn't go well.
No, it don't.
No.
And especially with, we're dealing with vehicles that were back in the 60s and early 70s that got hit. They had metal.
Yeah, real
Yeah.
steel.
You do it in one of the vehicles now?
No.
It ain't going to happen. It's going to look ugly when it's done.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it took the top off the truck anyway. So
Oh, yeah, it took it.
now it's just butter.
There was about maybe 6 inches of the windshield left in it that it shaved off and shaved the cab all the way through and put the top of the cab was in the bed of our truck. He couldn't have laid it any perfect if he'd put it there.
Like a can opener. Just boop.
Yeah. At first, he was trying to get us calmed down and made a joke about it. And he goes, well, I could go get my tractor with the bucket and we can lift the hood up and weld it back on. And we all died laughing, saying, yeah, wait until we get home and his dad sees the truck. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd been there and done
You
that.
weld the
before.
glass back too.
Yeah. Now, we decided to go convertible, no windshield, redneck it.
Hey, it's an upgrade. Some people, right?
Yeah, it's air conditioning. When you
Right.
tell kids now, they go, the air conditioning ain't working. We have air conditioner. It's called 270. Roll 2 windows down and go 70 miles an hour. There's wind, the air come in. That's air conditioning. That's what we grew up with.
Yeah, I worked for a guy doing construction, and that was his thing. He had an old work truck, and it had air conditioning, but he never turned it on. And I asked him one time, I said, man, why don't you turn on the air conditioning? Oh, that shit makes you weak. It just roll down the windows. Air conditioning makes you weak.
Why do you think when they call it on your left arm the farmer's tan? The farmer always had his arm out the window driving down the truck, right? So it always got more. It was either the farmer's tan or the truck drivers, semi drivers, because your arm's over here by the window. And the window always fries your arm. So you had the farmer tan on one arm or the trucker's tan on that one arm. This one would be white. That one would be all tanned up.
That's why the glass has UV protection now too, so people don't get cancer in that left arm. Truck drivers don't get it.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, truck driving's a whole different ball game than it was. Well, it would be 25 years ago I retired from truck driving. And it's a whole different ball game out there now.
Right.
Yeah.
Anybody can climb inside a semi with their automatics. They can all drive them. It's not that hard. You put somebody in a 13 or an 18 speed, then you got to teach them how to drive it.
Oh heck, 18's just getting started, man.
Yeah.
You got what is it? 1 through 12, high, low, and then high RPM, low RPM.
Yep. Now you could do like when I started with Pawpaw driving dump trucks, right? 6, 7 years old. So that would have been in 65 and 66. He had a 2-shift transmission.
Yeah.
So you're driving down the road and you got to shift. You take your hands off the steering wheel, grab these 2 shifters, push in on the clutch, rev your engine up, and get them in gear. Then put your hands back on the steering wheel. And I'm sitting there going, if you did that nowadays, oh shit.
Yeah.
A lot of
that
stuff
was
can
our
happen.
crane truck.
Yeah.
Our crane truck. So we had our main shifter, and then I had a little switch on it. Switch was the bottom set of gears, and then after you went through all the bottom set of gears, you flipped the switch and you went through the top set of gears.
Right.
And then you had the second shifter, which was your high RPM, low RPM to get up to your next gear. And we drove that crane truck through Little Rock, Arkansas. And let me tell you, you want to talk about a nightmare going down the interstate. Oh my God, I hated that thing. It was as old as it came. The clutch was fried in it. The clutch didn't work. It was all match the RPM and just grind it till it pops in, because the company didn't want to spend any money on stuff. That's the same company. They wouldn't upgrade our crane truck, but we got new vehicles for the crews, like pickup trucks, and they went ahead and paid extra to have the air conditioning removed because they didn't want to have the insurance risk of the difference in having to maintain like body temperatures and having the extreme fluctuations. So since everybody's working out in the Texas heat, they said it's safer for us to just remove the air conditioners. And that I will still argue that that was not safer.
No,
That was a nightmare. And why
no.
any company would pay extra to go out of their way to do that to their employees. It, I'll never understand big business. I really won't. I mean, I like the little man too much, I guess. I've been him for too long.
Right. Oh, I know the feeling. Like I had my truck, one of my trucks leased on to Warner Enterprises up there in Omaha, which I drove it. And I'd been with them for 2 years and everything. So they come up and said, "You want to be a trainer for us?" So we talked money wise and everything. And I said, "Yeah, I can do that." First two I had in the truck, no problem. They learned fantastic. The third one, I was ready to kill him, right? We're going over Pikes Peak. And if you've ever been out there and you know the mountain goes down and curls and all this, and you got runoff ramps and all this good
Yeah,
stuff, right?
not a place to learn.
Well, it was time for him to drive. And I'm like, I'm going to lay down in the back and take a nap. So when you get at the top of the hill, there's a pull off to check brakes.
Mhm.
Stop and check them, right?
Okay.
And I'll get up and I'll show you how we drive down the mountain, which he'd been with me on different mountains and everything and did everything, right? So I'm laying back there and I'm feeling the truck start to bounce. And I'm going, something ain't right. And then I got a whiff of brakes.
Oh.
So all I got on is my jeans laying in the bunk back there. I get up, I look out the windshield and look down at the speedometer, and he's doing 90 down the back side of Pikes Peak. I'm
Once you
going,
smell it, it's already
I
too late.
grabbed him by his collar, threw him over in the passenger seat, jumped in, and I said, "Hang on, you've already burnt my brakes up." I got on the CB and started telling all the trucks to warn the ones down in front of me, we got a runaway, right? Well, I couldn't, I mean, I can't even shift down a gear because we're going way too fast. The
Yep.
RPMs won't catch up. So I told him, I said, "You might want to get in the bunk and hang on. Because if you know Pikes Peak, the downside of the mountain, they've got chain rails holding the rock back up.
Yep.
The only thing I could think of to slow me down before I got really into the curves was to put the truck over and try to get it wrapped up in my trailer
Yep.
axles. Well, when I did that and got over, it wrapped up, it pulled me into the chains. It stopped me 3/4 of a mile down the road. I went from 90 to 0 in 3/4 of a mile with chain and rock and everything. Here is my brand new 1998 Kenworth W900, the whole side of it. Hood, down the side, passenger inside, everything ripped. We get down there, stop, highway patrol shows up. I told them what happened and everything. They asked the kid, "Was you driving down the hill?" "Yeah," until he threw me out of the seat. I said, "Yeah, he was doing 90 mile an hour and burnt my brakes up." DOT was out there and checked it. Sure enough, the brakes were burnt, all this good stuff. I didn't get a ticket, right? I should have for blocking the road because, I mean, there was rocks everywhere. Anyway, they got this kid out there, and I'm getting madder and madder as I look at my truck. So I told the officer, I said, "You want to do me a favor?" He goes, "What's that?" "You want to grab him and take him down to the next truck stop and have him call somebody to get a ride? Because if you don't, you're going to arrest me for murder. I'm going to
Yeah.
kill him." He just
Yeah.
destroyed my $180,000 truck, right? The officer looked at me and goes, "Probably a wise idea, isn't it?" And I went, "Yep."
Yeah.
So tow truck came, got everything. The whole side of the trailer's ripped out, produce all over the place. You name it, it was out. So I get a ride with the tow truck down to the truck stop. Not the first one. I said, you go to the second one because I told the officer to drop him at the first one. If I see him, I'm going to kill him. We get down there, drop the truck and the trailer off. They got another truck that's supposed to come and get what's left on the trailer. I called dispatch and I said, you get the old man up because I'm going to call back in another hour, and told him what happened. So they got Mr. C.L. Warner up out of bed, down to the office, right? And everything. And I told him what happened. I said, guess what? You owe me a brand new truck. He argued for about 15 minutes. And I said, it was because of one of your trainees that don't listen. Oh, so I went on, got in a small airplane, flew back up to Omaha and everything, got with C.L. Warner. We went down to Kenworth and he bought me a brand new 1999 Kenworth W900. He said, that cover it? And I said, yep, and take me off your trainer's list. I ain't doing that crap no more.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, my God.
My mom drove a semi for a little over 22 years, and I went on quite a few runs with her. Even after my first baby was born, we strap him in his car seat in the sleeper, and I'd look back and there he is, 3 months old, his little chubby self, and it would rock him to sleep. All you see is this pudgy little baby back there, sound asleep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
In his car seat in the sleeper. And I loved going with her. Saw a lot of stuff out on the road, wasn't always probably the safest to have two females out, all the time. It definitely drew attention. This was back in, she started driving in the 80s, and I started riding with her early 90s, so I was 17, 18, 19, even into my early 20s. I rode with her quite a bit. And then we got stranded at a truck stop in Chicago. It was a TA truck stop in Chicago, and we got snowed in for 3 days. And let me tell you, my mother and I being snowed into the cab of a truck for 3 days, we were ready to kill each other.
Uh-huh.
We didn't speak on the way home. And when I got back and she dropped me off at my house, I was like, I'll never ride with you again. I've had my fill. I'm good. I love you, but I'll never take this chance again. So that was literally the last time I ever rode with her, but I loved it. I absolutely loved getting out there and riding with her until we got stranded there. That was
Yeah.
just too much. As long as we
Well,
were moving and in and out, it was great.
there's too much bullcrap in the DOT rules nowadays. I'm glad
Yes.
I'm not out there.
Yeah.
The
And as
restrictions
an
are.
owner operator, there's no way I could afford to be out there.
Yeah, there's no money in it anymore as an owner
There's not.
operator.
When all my, up until 99, when I got out and stuff, diesel fuel was under $1 a gallon.
Yep.
Okay. I could afford every 3 years to take my truck and trade it in and get a brand new one. Right. And stuff with the freight prices. Now it's sitting at, I think it's 352 a gallon today uptown. 352. The freight prices have not tripled or quadrupled to equal what the fuel prices are. Because you not only have fuel, you got bobtail insurance, you got truck insurance, trailer insurance,
Yeah.
every kind of insurance you can imagine.
Tires
I had
alone.
5 trucks and 5 trailers to give you an idea. Every month, at the end of the month, I would get home, sit down, and write checks out, equaling $80,000 a month
Wow.
in insurance, truck payments, trailer payments, all this stuff, drivers' wages, everything. $80,000. And still able, all 5 of my trucks were under 3 years old. You can't do it nowadays.
No.
No,
You have to drive for a company and drive one of their pieces of crap.
Yeah, my mom.
That goes 62 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, my trucks were all long-legged trucks. They do triple digits with no problem.
Yeah, my mom, she always had to drive for somebody else. She was never an owner operator, and she drove for one company that had a governor on the truck, and she didn't stay long. She was like, you can't really make money. You know, she's like, the only way you make money is to be able to haul that load and get there. And of course, she'd pull over and fudge her logbooks and stuff, you know, so she could keep going. You know, but she's like, you got to keep the truck moving and, you know, get your load dropped
You
off.
can't let the grass grow
I
under.
know, right. She's like, and with these governors, she's like, it really delays you to where you really can't get to your destination on time. So she didn't stay there long. But I remember that. And especially, you know, we lived in Little Rock. That's where I graduated high school, was in Little Rock. And she drove for Ozark out of Little Rock there for a few years. And she she hated it, but she made pretty decent money working for them, I remember. But
No, what was the funniest thing about Warner was I go up there and you got to go through a 2-day orientation, right? I'd been driving for years over the road. They knew that. So I'd sit in there with these other people and listen to this stuff and listen to this stuff. And I'm going, yeah. They're showing them how to do a logbook. I went, yeah, right. They go, okay, we got to go do a driving test. And I went, okay, I'll show you guys something, right? Me and the instructor walk out. I got my 1998 beautiful, shiny show truck, Kenworth, sitting there. I start walking to it, and he goes, where are you going? I said, we're going for a road test. He goes, no, we're going for a road test. And I went, oh, hell no. This was a 1993 Freightliner cab over, right? He goes, that's what we road test people in. That ain't what I drive. Your company may drive that crap. That's mine. That's what I drive. Well, we got to drive it in this. And I said, okay, hang on. Climbed up in that thing. Of course, cab over's got this little bitty short shifter in it. And you're the first one at the accident right here, right?
Yep.
So I get in there. In my truck, I wouldn't double clutch. I floated gears. I could float the gears with no problem, right? So I started floating the gears in this cab over. Oh, no, you got a double clutch. And I said, oh, no, I don't. I said, every time you push that in and push it back, you're wearing your throw-out bearing and your clutch plate. Well, yeah. I said, that's why I float gears. You've never floated gears? He goes, yeah, I have. And I said, okay. We got all done, got back. And I said, did I pass? He goes, yeah, can we go drive your truck now? I said, yeah, anytime you want to, you can get in here and go with the ride for me. So, but yeah, that was their orientation. Yeah. And then they put that damn computer, bullshit, ComQuel, yeah, on the truck, right? Which records your speed, your fuel mileage, and all this shit, right?
Yep.
Well, like I said, my trucks were all triple-digit trucks. And when I say triple digits, we're talking 125, 130, 140 mile an hour trucks, loaded. Had pumps built for them. So I had it in there for a few months. Dispatch called me and said, we got a load before you come back to Omaha. You got to bring your truck in. They got to check your computer out. And I went, no, they don't. No, they don't. And everything. So I get to Omaha. I'm over at the Sapp Brothers truck stop and called the dispatch. I'm unloaded and I'm sitting at Sapp Brothers. What's this crap? They got to check my computer. He said, well, it's time to be checked because there's some discrepancies in it. I went, oh, shit. So I pull over there, pull in their shop. They hook up on it, download everything, right? And they go, okay, we got to take this computer system out. And I said, you leave that computer system. Don't touch nothing on my truck. I'll pull the damn thing out. So they didn't touch it. I said, get a hold of your owner up there, CL. Called him and everything. He said, send the driver up. So I went, walked 200 yards up to the office, went upstairs in his office and everything. And I said, what's the problem with the computer system in my truck? He goes, well, we're trying to figure out. And he's got the printout of what my truck did, right? He goes, I'm trying to figure this out because if your truck does this, I want to buy 500 of them. I went, what? He goes, yeah. According to the computer, you're doing 93 in third gear, getting 21 miles to the gallon. That's how bad that computer was. I said, you leave that damn thing in my truck. Don't touch it. He goes, well, we do have to put it because we know your truck don't do that. And I went, which part don't it do? He goes, the 21 miles a gallon. I said, no, it don't do that. It's 4.5 miles to the gallon dedicated. He goes, okay. And you sure don't do 93 in third gear? I said, no, I don't. He goes, well, how fast will your truck run? I said, it'll run faster than any truck you got on this lot, even your show truck. He goes, really? I said, yeah, I've been clocked at 142, so I know it'll run.
Mhm.
So they left it in the truck. They didn't mess with it. After that, I avoided every Warner drop site there was where they'd hook up a computer system to the truck. I'd say, get me a load and get me the hell out of here. Well, you got to go over there and buy fuel. No, I don't. So,
That's
yeah,
funny.
that was the fun days in trucking. Nowadays, you can't do that shit.
Right.
You definitely
You
can't.
don't see trucks out here running that type of speed anymore. You know,
No.
the best time I had with Warner was I was running with 5 trucks that said Warner Enterprise on the trailers and their trucks. Well, mine said Warner Enterprise on the side of it, but it's a different color. These bull haulers didn't know that. They yelled about the weenie wagons as they was coming up, going, you guys are blocking the lane. You're blocking the lane. Get off the road. All this and that. Here goes these 2 bull haulers, about 80 mile an hour. Right? Well, I was bored running 62 miles an hour with these other guys. I said, I'll catch you at the truck stop, and told him which one I was going to stop at. And they said, okay. I said, I got to go have fun. So I got going up the road. I come up on the bull haulers. I said, oh, there's them damn nasty old bull haulers chugging up the road and everything. And they're going, bring it on, bring it on. Well, I'm just sitting there going along, right? About this time, I go blowing by them about 105 miles an hour. They go, that ain't a Warner truck. And I said, never said it was. They hired me to blow the cobwebs off the truck. Let's run. They were running as fast as their trucks would run at 80 mile an hour.
Yeah.
I said, don't ever look at the truck, look at the trailer. You better look at the truck at what's in front of it.
Mhm.
And they agreed.
Hmm.
So I had a good rest waiting on the other guys to get up there with me. That was in Wyoming.
Well, I hate to cut it short here, but I'm gonna have to get off here for the night.
Yeah, I think we're going to end it for tonight and everything. So,
Okay.
been a great show.
Oh yeah, yeah. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much for having James and myself on. Look forward to this weekend and our
Yep.
first show.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, I'm excited for you guys, and thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
absolutely, it's great meeting you, Phoenix. Thank you so much.
Nice meeting you.
Yep. The only thing you got to do, Mitch, is flip that picture around
Yeah, yeah. Well,
on the
see, that's what
background.
yeah. I'll have that fixed.
I sent him a new
next week.
background so he can do that.
Oh, did you? Because let's see here.
Yeah.
Before we get off here, let me see if I can do this my way. And if it
I
does it,
can
okay.
So you can
You
either
see
flip
how
the
it's
camera.
backwards, right? And I'm going to go to camera and I'm going to mirror the background. And look at that. It reads the right
Yeah.
way.
I did
That's all you
that.
got to
And
do.
It's still backwards, Carl.
No, it's not.
it's backwards. Yep.
It looks backwards to me. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
it's still
looking
still
on the
backwards.
screen.
That's the
Can you
problem
read
I was
mine or
having.
read his?
it's backwards to us.
James, which one's backwards?
You
they're
both
both
are.
they're both backwards. Hold on, I'll tell you. I got this. Hold on. There you go.
Do you,
All right, one second.
Phoenix, do you see me in the picture, right?
Yes, you're both backwards.
Does that have an N right there?
Yes,
And over behind my head is the microphone,
yes,
and the word nonsense is written this way.
yes.
That's the correct way to see it live.
Hold
His
on,
is
hold on.
backwards.
No,
Mine's
you're
the
both
exact same way as
facing the
yours.
same
Oh,
way.
That I just took a screenshot. That's what it looks like on our side.
Yeah,
Really?
facing the same
Yeah.
way. You're both backwards.
It doesn't on our screen that I'm looking at.
I know. That's what he was saying.
Yeah.
He said
The
to
one
him,
I'm
That's what I
looking
told
at
you. I flipped
on
it.
mine right here looks the correct way.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
even when you said, and it says nonsense this way, you were going backwards. And I'm like, yeah, you're backwards.
I'm going this way.
Not
Which
to
is
us,
backwards.
though. Yeah, you're backwards.
Oh, wait,
Okay.
hold on a second.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, just
But
switch
just-
it around then.
To us looking
Yeah.
at you, Carl, it was backwards. To you, it was looking right on your screen, but to us looking at you, it was backwards.
Is
Now
mine
that's-
backwards too?
Okay. Is this one
yeah, yours is
backwards?
backwards too.
No, Carl, that
My-
one's right.
Mine's backwards.
On the
Yeah.
way I'm looking at it on my screen and on us right there, it's backwards what I see.
Yeah, no, it's correct. I can read it. High on nation, normal. Yeah, it's
Oh,
good.
okay.
James is backwards.
So mine's back. Okay, so
You're backwards now. Yeah. You're facing the same way that Mitch has been.
Okay.
uh,
Either way,
Y'all make me sound like I'm crazy. I know. Like I spent a
to
lot.
me it looks backwards. On the
So
screen.
my-
It's
now
supposed to
mine's
look backwards to you. Yeah.
is it still backwards?
No.
Not on you, it's
fixed
not.
it.
I fixed
It
it.
was.
Okay,
You just
so-
flipped it around.
So the virtual, so on StreamYard, the background has to be backward or forwards first, and then it will appear backwards for you, but then it will appear forwards for everyone
It'll
else.
appear for,
Okay.
it'll,
I
right.
guess. I
It's
always
right.
figured
Correct.
that what I seen on our screen is what everybody is seeing.
Yeah, I thought so too. That's crazy.
So did I fix it then?
James, you fixed yours. James has
Yep,
been
Mitch, you fix yours.
good all night. Then he flipped it backwards and he just flipped it back. So James is now. Mitch is good. Mitch is right now.
To me, it
All
looks
right, we got-
right on both of them.
Yeah.
Well, they
They're
both
both
are
backwards.
now. Yeah,
Here, I'll do
They're backwards.
they're yeah. Mitch and James are both correct now. Looking at
Oh,
them.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
But
how
it
to
looks
use them
backwards
Saturday
for
night,
them.
guys.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll try and keep that because yeah, like
Well-
right now, looking at my screen, mine's backwards on my screen, and James is correct on his. So,
Yeah. But you're both
Right.
facing the same way to us looking at you guys. Yeah. So you're good.
All right.
I
I knew we'd get it.
I don't
eventually.
know. But anyway, thank everybody in the chat room for joining us and your comments and everything. Carrie joined us tonight and stuff, and Bill and Ruth, Albie. She didn't remember that we're on Tuesday nights now and everything. So everybody mark that on your calendar, Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Central for Life Unfiltered. We're back on that time zone again and everything. And then also check this Saturday night, right after No BS, will be Mitch and JB on No Nonsense Tonight. Check out their first show and show them support and everything as we bring them on. So, again, I want to thank you all
On Rumble.
and stuff. So, we will see you next week here on Life Unfiltered. Everybody have a good evening.
Good night.